Welcome into the ESPN FC studios. Alejandro Moreno, Shaka Hislop, Sebastian Salazar. We're enjoying the international break, but always with an eye on what's coming in the world of club football. With us as well, Gab Marcotti and Sid Lowe. Coming up on Sunday the 24th, guys, we've got a couple derbies we're interested in. Arsenal against Spurs in North London, and in the Spanish capital of Madrid, Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid. Throw those two in there. When we think of city derbies, what's your favorite? Shaka, I'll start with you.
So city derby, so Real Madrid, Barcelona doesn't count, Liverpool, Manchester United doesn't. I'm going to go with Manchester Derby. I think that has taken on significance, kind of given the history between those two, and Sir Alex Ferguson branding City the noisy neighbours, and City's now dominance of English football in a way that Manchester United once did. I think that's probably, of the city derbies, the one I look forward to most.
Ale?
Well, let's throw some South American love to the conversation here. I could go with Fla-Flu, Flamengo Fluminense in Brazil. But if we're going to talk about South American derbies, we have to say Boca River in Argentina. And it doesn't matter whether it's Boca River Monumental or Boca River Boca Juniors as well in La Bombonera, where the environment, honestly, when you attend one of these games, you feel like you are one play away from something blowing up. That's this passion, that's intensity, that's the energy that you get in the stadium. I remember conversations that I had with people in the past in which they say, well, are you sure about going to Boca River? You want to be part of that experience, and anybody who's a fan of the game should want to be part of that experience. Boca River is something that you'll never forget.
If I'm thinking of one person who's been to games all over the world, it's got to be Gab Marcotti. Gab, for you, what's the biggest derby?
Right. Well, for me, one of the things I look for is I don't want a top dog and a second banana. I want two teams that are historically matched in terms of fan base, in terms of history, in terms of prestige. Boca River, of course, is right up there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my hometown, Milan and Inter, the Derby della Madonnina. The Old Firm in Glasgow, Celtic and Rangers. That has, of course, there's a whole bunch of other layers to it as well. And because Sid is on the show, I'll mention something from La Liga, El Gran Derby, Betis and Sevilla.
Ooh, I like that one. Good shout there. Sid, what do you think of Gab's list? You got anything to add?
No, I like that a lot. And I think we've done this deliberately, haven't we? Because the best derby in the world is actually being played tomorrow between Real Oviedo and Sporting de Gijón in the second division in Spain. Now, not strictly speaking a city derby, because they're 25 kilometres apart, but it might as well be a city derby. Actually, I really like what Gab said, and I think the fact that he then moved on to the Grand Derby, one of the things that makes Betis against Sevilla really special is this doesn't feel, as Gab was pointing out, it doesn't feel like one really big team and then one not as big team. These are two teams where you can genuinely go to Seville and get into an argument about which of these two teams is biggest. Now, obviously, over the last 10 years with the European success, Sevilla have eclipsed Betis in terms purely of success, but in terms of fan base, in terms of history, in terms of the quality of the players they have, it's really, really even, and it feels massive every time. And then another one from Spain for you. Again, though, they're not the same city, unfortunately. So I guess it doesn't really count. But Athletic Club against Real Sociedad is very special, partly because it's absolutely fierce, but completely friendly at the same time.
You're a worldly traveller.
No.
What's yours? What's your? What would you go for?
It's a good shout. Can I throw some kind of North Americans?
You could throw whatever you in there.
You do you, Seb.
I love an El Tráfico. I love a good LA Galaxy against LAFC. You get some really good matchups there. They always seem to deliver on drama. In Mexico, if I'm going off cities only, I would have to go Tigres Rayados right now. Those are probably the two biggest spenders in Mexico. Best clubs is hard for me to say as an Americanista, but yeah, there's some good rivalries down there. I think what Sid and Gab touched on is very interesting. There's a lot of great, intense rivalries in La Liga, aren't there, Ale?
Yeah, and rivalries that people perhaps are not familiar with or don't think about, given the fact that when you consider rivalries in La Liga, you start and finish with El Clásico, and that's what most people from the outside looking in focus on Barcelona and Real Madrid. But when you look deep in La Liga and you go searching, you will find things like Athletic Club and Real Sociedad. And the point that Sid was making there about how it can be fierce but friendly at the same time. It's a juxtaposition of what you would think a rivalry would be like. But there are indeed families that are divided, that it is Athletic Club and Real Sociedad, and that they're sitting together, and yet somehow they can coexist. And while on the field, yes, you can sense the rivalry and you can feel it, and you know it's real. And the game is over, and you kind of move on with your lives, but you move on with your lives with your pride of having been a Real Sociedad fan or being an Athletic Club fan. You cannot be both. You're either one of them. And as any rivalry, I think what matters the most is that those games show that intensity and that energy. Real Sociedad Athletic Club is one of those in La Liga.
To that point, that sounds a lot like the Merseyside derby, Liverpool and Everton. But to Gab's point, there's no questioning who's the big dog in that fight. Liverpool, given their history and even recently the successes that they've enjoyed, they are the big club in that argument, and Everton very much eclipsed.
From your playing career, is there a derby game that stands out?
Newcastle against Sunderland. Again, not a city rivalry across the Tyne River between those two, but that was pretty fierce to the point where when Sunderland was promoted to the Premier League, away fans weren't allowed to travel to either ground because of the fear of trouble between both sets of supporters. But that one was very intense.
Gab, have we left anything out?
No, I think I'm sure there are derbies out there that we have forgotten. A lot of time, what Sid pointed out about Gijón and Oviedo, a lot of times, especially in Europe, these rivalries. I'm thinking of a great equivalent from Italy, Atalanta against Brescia. These are cities that are 10 miles apart. They argue over, we've got more freeway exits. Well, we have a bigger airport, whatever. They argue about little silly things, but they're really rooted in history, going back to medieval times, city-states, people who really fiercely dislike each other, and not just on the football pitch, and yet they're neighbors. But yeah, strictly those are not city derbies.
All right, got some.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.